Hello and welcome. We are the Cynic. We're delighted to be part of this fantastic event. When Paul asked us to take part, it was an absolute no-brainer. And most importantly, it's an absolutely wonderful way to raise money for four hugely important charities. So we're delighted to be here. I'm your host today, Paul Carlin. I'm joined by two absolute titans of the Cynic. It's a talented panel. It's a very hip panel. It's an attractive panel. And it's a salty panel. First up, it's the man who's created the feature that we're going to do today. His nickname privately is the Vulture, and we're hopeful we'll see some of those characteristics today. Hi, Stuart Dugan.
Hello, Paul. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You have to be here because this is basically your podcast that we're doing today.
It's true. There would be some copyright infringement, and that is not what we're looking for when we're trying to raise money for charity.
Exactly. And taking on Stuart, it's one of the breakout stars of the Cynic. She's come in here with some strong opinions and a whole bunch of pizzazz to every podcast she takes part in. And this is the first time we've actually worked together. It's Ruth Boyle.
Hello, thanks for having me. I do feel quite a lot of pressure going up against the inventor of the game, but I'll try my best. That's all I can do.
Well, you're up against not only the inventor of the game, but the Vulture. I mean, Stuart Dugan is a Cynic legend. Everyone's terrified of him.
I'm just the rookie. It is a lot of pressure.
Guys, that's very kind of you to say. It's all true.
Okay, that's enough of being nice to each other. There'll be some people watching that don't know who we are, so I think we should establish a few very, very important things about ourselves before we go into this feature that we're going to do today. So I'd like to know, I'm going to ask you 4 questions. Your first Celtic match, your favourite player from the past, your real favourite player from the past, and your current favourite player. So, Ruth, let's start with you. Can you remember your first Celtic match?
I can. It was actually a friendly, my first game. So if you can't tell from my accent, I'm from up north. So I didn't get to all that many games when I was young, but my first one was a friendly against Leeds under John Barnes that we lost 2-1. So a good introduction to Celtic. And I think that was one of those games where you weren't even sure what formation we were playing because it was in the John Barnes era. So overall, very good.
Can you remember anything about the game? Who scored? Or anything like that?
I think it was Bobby Petta that scored for Celtic, if I remember. My biggest blow was, coming on to the next question, I was a big Henrik Larson fan as a child, and he had a calf strain that day, so he wasn't playing. But my mum actually clocked him in the stands behind us. So I think I spent as much time kind of looking around at Henrik Larson as I did actually watching the game. But yeah, it was good. I was very excited to be there all the same.
Well, that maybe brings you on to your favourite player from the past, is it? Is it the King of Kings?
It is. I know that's a very obvious and basic choice, but as a child, I was fully obsessed with Henrik Larson. My walls were just clarted in images of him. And I was actually thinking about this, that I did my solo talk in primary 6 on Henrik Larson, where I took in a table of all of my Henrik Larson merch and just spoke about him for about 20 minutes, much to the dismay of my classmates, I think. But yeah, I was just fully obsessed with him, and it's obvious why.
Well, you say he's your favourite player, but who's your real favourite player? Like, who's the one that you just won't ever admit that he actually is your favourite player?
I mean, I'm not ashamed of it, but I do say Hendrik to get some respect. But really, when I say that, I feel like I'm betraying my main man, Giorgio Samaras, who really is my favourite player. And I adore him, and I will defend him against anyone. I think he's underrated. I know he was a frustrating player, but he did enough to be adored, in my opinion.
Oh, I loved him too. Absolutely loved him. And your current favourite player? I know it's not the best of seasons, but,
Well, certainly not the best of seasons for this man. I know he's not currently playing, but I can't say anyone other than James Forrest because I love him and I hate how underappreciated he is. And I'm really hoping that this time without Jamesy will make people realise that he's actually very pivotal to our game and that he is a good player and deserves a little bit more respect. where my season ticket is, I sit with a lot of James Forrest haters, and he gets constant abuse for the full 90 minutes. And I'm kind of hoping that those people are taking a long, hard look at themselves at the moment and thinking that when we return to Parkhead, or Parkers, he will not be getting the same abuse that he did in the past.
I totally agree. I think Forrest is a class act. I love the guy. Thank you, Ruth. Right, Stuart, over to you. Your first game.
So all I know is that my first trip to Parkers was the 95-96 season, and then I actually had to spend some time with my dad and my brother trying to figure out exactly what game it was, because I was 9 at the time and there wasn't really any fanfare. Like, I even asked my dad, I was like, that must have been like a big occasion, and he was like, yeah, I think it was this, or it might have been that. I was like, all right, okay, it was just some random game. So I think it was the 2-1 game against Partick Thistle on the 7th of October, because I think that my brother first went as like a birthday treat for him when it was his birthday, and that's the game that's closest to my birthday. And I watched the highlights today, and I do actually remember, because Pierre Van Hooijdonk scores this absolute screamer. We won 2-1, and he scores an absolute screamer. And I do remember chanting Pierre and quite enjoying that. So I think that's when it was.
That's a great memory. Lovely. Pierre Van Hooijdonk. Oof. Your favourite player from the past? Now, I think you've got a great answer for this, or I hope you've got a great answer for this.
Well, I'll give you my the PR, the public-facing favourite player. And obviously, the first sort of proper season that I really remember would be sort of stopping the 10, and then my most vivid memories are really through the sort of Martin O'Neill era. And so Henrik Larson is very much my favourite player. I can't think of a player that I've watched that's brought me as much joy, or that you could just watch and know had the power to. You just knew he was going to do something, even if it was quiet in a game. He was always going to do something, and it wasn't even like he's going to have an off day. He literally always would do something. It was a case of how many things he would do. So Larson brought me a lot of joy. But if you look at the paperwork for my Young Hoops membership when I first signed up at the age of probably 10, 11, my favourite player was Reggie Blinker, which it's a hill that I've had to die on over the years, because there's not really a lot to go on for why that was, but that's it. So I guess that's what I said at the time. So that's what I'll say to you now, Paul. That was my favourite player.
Do you guys remember that nightclub Archaeos in Queen Street in Glasgow? Reggie Blinker's still in there.
He's still in there.
He's still in there to this day. Okay, and your favourite player from the current squad, Stuart?
Well, anyone that's listened to the Cynic will know that I talk frequently with my passionate relationship for Tom Rogic. I just love that he's such a luxury player, ultimately. I think that's great. And again, a player that is given so many highlights. It's not even like, there was that one incredible goal he scored in that important game. I mean, he's got a raft of goals against the Huns. He's got the treble winner. There's just so many of them. I absolutely adore him. So Tom Rogic.
Lovely stuff. Okay, I'll just quickly go through mine. My first match, I feel absolutely ancient. 3rd of January 1987. First time I went to Parkers. Celtic 8, Hamilton Accies 3. Brian McClure scored, I think, 4 goals, either a hat-trick or 4 goals, I can't remember. But I went to my Uncle Tommy, and it was before the stadium get renovated. Renovated? Is that the right word? Renovated?
That's what you do to a kitchen, Paul. It's not what you do to a stadium.
As opposed to a stadium.
I'm going to double down on renovated.
It wasn't a lick of paint.
18 game, and it's funny, I can't remember much about the game, but all I remember was that I was drinking a can of juice, and the can of juice got taken off me by a steward because I wasn't meant to have a can of juice in the stadium. Bizarre, that's what I remember from it. My favourite player from the past, if I don't say Paul McStay, I think I'd get battered, so it's the maestro for me. But my real favourite player from the past is actually the man that made his debut in this game, and I just heard the E-Tims guys giving him some heat earlier. Anton Rogan. I just love Anton Rogan. You know, that guy, maybe not the most talented Celtic player, but he certainly had an energy, and he was, put shoes in the right feet, looked good in the hoops. So I'll go with Rogan.
And inspired the naming of Brendan Rodgers' son, of course. So.
Oh, of course. Anton Rodgers, the most famous thing he ever did was got scanted by Christian Gamble at training, right? That's the reason that Gamble will forever be a Celtic hero. See, from the current team, I was thinking about this morning, and I love Eddie, I love McGregor, but this season I don't really love any of those guys. So
Why don't you talk about your favourite Rangers player then, Paul? Come on.
Very good, Stuart. Thank you. I'm going to go with a divisive choice because I know that a lot of Celtic fans think that he's a bit hot and cold. I'm going to go with Elyounoussi because I think he's been probably one of the few shining lights this season, even though he doesn't do it in every game. I get quite excited when he gets on the ball and sort of tries to cut inside. And I just think he's a cool guy. So Elyounoussi. Right, today we're going to do something kind of different. There's been a lot of analysis all day on this fantastic broadcast, looking at the Cup final. We're going to do something slightly different. So at the Cynic, we provide podcasts kind of covering every single aspect of Celtic, previews, reaction pods. We do a lot of features, and today we're going to bring you one of those. We're doing an episode of The Dugout, created by our friend Stuart Dugan. In this episode, so Stuart and Dugan are going to take on each other, playing the role of the Celtic manager in a kind of hypothetical cup final against Hearts tomorrow. So you're going to be facing up to 5 different scenarios, which I'll ask you to react to in real time. I say up to 5 because I don't know if we'll have time to do 5 in an hour, but we'll get through as many as we can. So Ruth and Stuart must explain what they'll do if they were in Neil Lennon's shoes to overcome the challenges that they'll be presented with. And once I've heard both your pieces, we'll award a point to whoever I think's given the best solution to the scenario. But before we start, this is very important. We need to know what kind of manager you are. Like, are you a tracksuit manager, a suit manager? Are you an angry manager? Are you like Nigel Pearson? Are you Jose Mourinho? Ruth, what kind of manager are you?
Do you know, we were talking about this on the agenda earlier in the week, and for this cup final, I decided that I was going to be very, very Roberto Mancini in my get-up. So I'm going to be wearing the suit, but I am going to have a Celtic scarf on. I'm hoping it might be a sunny day and I might be able to wear some sunglasses as well, just for kind of an added diva edge, you know? Yep. I think maybe Neil Warnock-esque is going to be my persona in the dressing room.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to go for.
Don't take his politics though, Ruth, please.
No, of course not. I'm drawing the line there. No, I'm going to be harsh but fair. That's what I'm going for.
I mean, Roberto Mancini started off really, really, really well.
Roberto Mancini with the spirit of Neil Warnock.
It ended in a really, really weird way, but there we go. Stu, what about you?
I think that I would like to imagine that I'm sort of one of the new wave of young continental managers, but in reality, I'm probably not. I think that I would definitely be suited and booted for a cup final, but I would do the Martin O'Neill straight down the tunnel, miss the first few minutes of the game to get into my sort of tracksuit jumper set up. And I think I'd be quite animated. I basically want to be Pep. I think that's what it is. This jumper's quite Pep, so yeah, I think that's what I'd do.
Great. Okay, I like everything I've heard so far, but it means nothing until we get into this game. So this is The Dugout. We are the Cynic. Remember that you can donate, by the way. This is all for charity. This is the all day, 24 hours. I think it's 48 hours, actually, 2 days of podcasts. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But check in the links below this, whatever screen you're looking at. There's a GoFundMe raising money for 4 excellent charities. Very, very important work. And we're thrilled to be part of it. So let's go. Let's talk about the lineups. So Neil Lennon in his post-match press conferences recently has talked about giving some of the guys that got us to this point the chance to come and win the trophy. So I've come up with a Celtic and Hearts lineup that we're going to start with. This is the lineup that we're going to use for most of this podcast. But there will be some scenarios where things have to change. So here's who I've gone with. In goals, Hazard, surprising. A back four of Laxalt, Duffy, Julian and Ayer. Sitting in front of them, Scott Brown and Callum McGregor. The 3 in front of them, Moy Elyounoussi, Tom Rogic and Ryan Christie. And Odsonne Edouard up front. Your subs, Barkas, Taylor, Frimpong, Sorrow, Turnbull, Johnson, Ayeti, Griffiths and Klimala. Hearts are going to set up in a 4-2-3-1. So Gordon, Kingsley, Berra, Halkett, Smith. Haring and Halliday in midfield. 3 in front of them are Walker, Naismith and Lee, and Liam Boyce up front. And on the bench for Hearts are 9 absolute no marks. So who cares? Are we both ready to start?
I am, yes. I'm taking some notes, Paul, but yes, I'm ready to go when you are.
That team sheet has given me the fear because I think that is going to be very similar to what Lennon does, but that's fine.
This is actually only the third time the dugout's ever been done. So, but I'm going to pull out what we're calling a classic dugout trope. Moy Elyounoussi has pulled up in the warm-up and he can't take part in the match. Who are you bringing in to replace him? And will it affect your formation? Stuart, as the creator of this podcast, I'm going to ask you to go first on this. So what are you going to do? Moy's out.
Well, first of all, I'll be delighted because he's not a big game player. So didn't want him in there in the first place.
Well, he scored most of our European goals. But apart from that...
I know, mate. I'm just committing to a hill that I died on months ago. I think that of all the players that could pull up injured, I think that that's going to be the most open and shut case because now it might come back to haunt me slightly later in the game, but I think that I would just keep the same formation, straight swap in Mikey Johnson.
Oh, do you think
do I think he's fit? Is he ever fit? That's a rhetorical question. I think that you're going to get a good 60 minutes out of Mikey Johnson, and I also just think that it depends how Hearts are going to set up. If they're going to come in and try and sort of stagnate and stuff up the game, a player like Mikey Johnson is going to be fantastic for breaking lines and getting in behind. Loves a wee lollipop, loves a wee trick, a little amusement arcade of a player. So, yeah, I think that you get a good 60, 65 minutes out of MJ and your plans aren't really thrown into too much disarray. So I'm sorry, Ruth, that is the obvious answer, and I've stolen it from you, but I did create the game, so.
Stuart, that means there's a space in the bench as well. Is there anyone that you'd like to bring in from the cold to sit on the bench? I know I'm just springing this on you, but there is space in the bench.
I would bring in, for space on the bench, Olivier Ncham.
That's actually good. I was wondering if anyone would notice that Ncham wasn't actually in the squad.
I was, because when I was doing this the other day, I was like, is Ncham just not getting stripped these days? Like, he's not played in ages.
Doesn't seem to be. Okay, right, that's interesting. So it's basically you're sticking with the same 4-2-3-1 formation, MJ in for Moy, and hope for the best, really. It's what I'm hearing here, Stuart. Ruth, what are you going to do?
I mean, this is absolutely brutal going a second on this one. I feel like
by the way, sorry, there is one rule: you can't do the same thing as the person that came. Right.
Hence the brutality. Do you know this? I feel like it's a big decision to change the formation at this early stage, and I think I'm going to have to just play a player slightly out of position in order to not throw all of the players out of their flow. So I think I'm going to bring in Griff. And he's going to kind of have to play on the left, but maybe he can slot in just slightly behind Eddie and be doing some of the legwork on behalf of Eddie. I know that's not ideal. It's not what anybody wanted to happen. It's certainly not what Griffiths wanted to happen. But a big factor in this as well is what you need is players who have a hatred for Hearts in their veins, who are going to use that to play out of their skin, even if they're playing out of position. And I think that I'm going to say that to Griff, might show him a little montage of Hearts winning cups in the past before I put him out there. And I'm going to play Griff on the left. But kind of, we're going for fluidity here. Fluidity hides some loads of sins. So yes, I'm going to put Griff on the left, but give him kind of free rein to do as he pleases.
Okay, so basically stick with the formation, bring Griffiths in, have him on the left. Okay, well, first of all, I'm pleased that you both stuck with the formation. I think that's the right thing to do. I think that close to kickoff to then switch to a back three or whatever would be the wrong thing to do. Stuart, yeah, MJ, let's go through the pros and cons. MJ, he's a fantastic player. I think the kid is so talented and definitely the kind of guy that can unlock a packed defence. However, his fitness, he's played 5 minutes of football recently. I guess if he's fit enough to make the bench, you could probably take part at some point. I would have concerns about him though, pulling up quite early in the game. And what do we do then if he goes off injured?
Well, we'll put Griffin. She's just said that's what we'll do. So we've got two plans going here, Paul. Now we're fine.
Well, let's come to that. Griffiths, I don't think that's a great position for Griffiths to play in.
No, let's not do that then. That's a bad idea. I don't like
maybe
that.
we'd be inclined to put Griffiths up front, and you could maybe move Eddie out to the left a little bit, like we used to do with your hero. Samaras used to play in the left off the striker. However, when you said hatred for Hearts,
I thought that might get your attention.
Well, games like this, you need an X factor. You need an extra carrot to dangle in front of the team. And that's what it would be for Griffiths. I think he'd probably end up playing his heart out. This is a tricky one to award the points. I must say, though, I'm not comfortable with playing Griff on the left. I don't think he's disciplined enough to do that. I don't think he would track back and help out Laxalt. And I love Mikey Johnson more than I love Griffiths. So, Stuart, you get the points for round one. Well done.
Thank you.
I just hope that Johnson doesn't get injured again, because I don't think he can take being told to fuck off by Lennon twice in a row. So that's what I'm saying. You might ruin a young player's career.
There's certain cynics that can't handle that either. So,
well, as managers, what do you used to think of that? How would you have dealt with that situation up at where was it, McDermott Park? I think that happened.
I would have done the exact same thing, Paul. And if you think that that's the only time that a manager's told Mikey Johnson to fuck off, you're absolutely dreaming.
Ruth, what do you think?
I maybe wouldn't have done it so publicly. I might have waited till I was in the dressing room and then told him to fuck off. But maybe it wasn't the best PR to do it on a public forum like that. But I understand the frustration if you told him that he was fit enough to play and then pulls up again.
So either way, MG's getting told to F off, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right, absolutely.
Okay. The location changes.
Right. Scenario number 2 is half-time. Celtic are 2-1 down and playing poorly. Odsonne Edouard has scored once. He's not having a great game. He's just not getting the service. It's been a problem all season. Scott Brown has given away a penalty and is on a yellow card. Hearts are hitting us kind of down their right, our left, with Stephen Naismith and Jamie Walker switching positions between the 10 and on the right. What are you going to do to turn the tide? Now, remember, you get 5 substitutions in this. And by the way, just to clarify, this is the lineup. This is the original lineup with Moy, not with MG and Griffiths. All right, so we're reverting to the original formations you were given. Ruth, you're first up this time.
Sorry, I actually slightly missed the start of the scenario. Could you just repeat the start of it?
Half-time in the Scottish Cup final. Celtic are losing 2-1, playing poorly. Eddie scored once, not having a great game. Scott Brown's given away a penalty and is on a yellow card. And most of the Hearts attacks are coming down our left-hand side with their number 10 and their right winger switching positions. So I'd like to know what you're going to do to turn the tide in the second half.
Okay, I think I am going to go for a formation change. I know that we have criticised Lennon for similar, but I think it's time. So I think I'm going to move to a 3-5-2.
Right. Okay,
so
talk me through it.
I am I'm going to move Laxalt forward a little bit. I'm going to swap Brown for a striker. So Brown is going off. He's had his chance on the cup final day. I just think that it's time we need a little bit more energy. And I'm going to go for Klimala. Now, the reason why I'm going for Klimala is, I don't know if you remember in the Scottish Cup final last year, that ball over the top for Eddie. Beda's legs are gone. Beda has no legs, basically. I think Klimala's got the energy that he's going to be able to cause some problems for Beda. And also, on the Gordon front, he's also prone to a howler. I think that Klimala is someone that can put a little bit of pressure on him. I think that there could be a situation where, like Salzburg, Gordon throws the ball off Klimala into the back of his own net. I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, that is a possibility.
It's a distinct possibility. And yeah, McGregor's going to push back a little bit into sitting just in front of the striker, is just in front of the defence, just to kind of shore things up for us there. Is that the end of my segment?
Well, I'd like to know, kind of, if you're playing a back three, like, who's going to play on the right? So, you know, you've got, I take it your back three is going to be Ayer, Julien and Duffy?
Yeah, I'm not entirely happy with my back three being Duffy being in that back three, but I'm going to sit and wait and see how that pans out. I think when we look at our defensive sub options, I think we just have to see how that works out. If Welsh had been on the bench, I might have been tempted to take him on as well. I think that might have been a good learning curve for him, but I'm going to be playing Ayer on the right in my back three. That's
okay.
what I'm going for.
Who's gonna play at right wing back then?
We are having. Oh God, yeah, I'm going to need a right wing back. I'm going to have to do another sub here, people. I'm going to take Frimpong on for Christie.
Oh, where's Christie going? Into the blender. So Christie,
I've not been impressed
on.
with Christie. I think Christie was a slight error in substitution, in starting. To be honest, I don't think I was impressed by that. I just went for the loyalty factor that Lennon had mentioned, and in reality, it hasn't paid off. So yes, Frimpong's going to come on. He's going to start causing a little bit of problems, and yeah, we're going to turn the game around.
Okay, I've heard enough. Stuart, over to you.
So, a system change is somewhat ruled out if Ruth's going 3-5-2. So, what I would do is I would look at personnel here. So, Scott Brown's been booked and has given away a penalty, which indicates he's not playing very well. So, I would hook him for Sorrow. I think Sorrow should start anyway. We've played best recently when we've had Sorrow, doing all the work, breaking up the play, maybe being a bit more positive, and also covering so much ground that he's going to allow McGregor a little bit more freedom to maybe go and help cover on that left where we're being, pinned in a little bit. You said Eddie's not playing very well. It sounds like what Eddie needs is some service. He needs someone that's going to come in and link up with him. Maybe someone that's going to deliver some set pieces as well that could threaten. That's not going to be Ryan Christie, is it? His 1 out of 100 crosses that might end up in some kind of goal. So I would also take off Christie and bring on DT14 David Turnbull and hope that playing Turnbull slightly off to the right, so you'd have Turnbull, Rogic and Moy, a lot of creativity in there. And more than anything, I just think that Turnbull's increased, XG for the stat nerds out there from set pieces, the likes of Duffy, Julian, Ayer. Maybe it could be a set piece that we get our goal to get back in the game, or maybe just having him come in and link up with Eddie, get those nice little 1-2s going that Ryan Christie's incapable of. I think that's it. I think I'm going to stick with the same formation for now because we're only at half time, and since it's not available to me, although that was my first inclination. So that's it. It's just 2 substitutions, Paul. Brown for Sorrow, Christie for Turnbull.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Now, neither of you really addressed the issue that Hearts are hitting us down kind of our left-hand side. And I suppose actually, Ruth, you did. You're making us more.
I was also quite vocal about Cal McGregor being freed up to go and help with that situation, Paul, because of Sorrow's extra work.
It's not really what I was looking for, Stuart. I'll be honest with you.
I think as well a formation change might stop that from happening in that those channels won't be open to Hearts anymore. They're going to have to change the way that they're playing to adapt to my very offensive system change.
Well, okay, Ruth, let's look at yours. I love the idea that you're bringing on Paddy Klimala for Scott Brown. That's some blue sky thinking right there. Love it. Berra's legs are gone. Yeah, fantastic. Klimala's exactly the type of striker I'd like to see playing against that Hearts defence. Frimpong coming on for Christie. Yeah, I'm into that as well. Frimpong should probably be starting on Saturday, but I think we all know he won't. I'm a little bit unsure, though, about this McGregor, Rogic, Moy axis. I don't really know what's happening with that.
I kind of lost the plot a little bit, I'll be honest with that. I did actually want to take Turnbull on and then forgot about it until Stuart said the name Turnbull. I was like, damn it.
Well, Stuart, you did say that name Turnbull, and I've got to say, I just felt a wash of serotonin because that guy's class act. Sorrow as well. Yeah. I think we all know what needs to happen, but I think we all know what we'd like to see happen tomorrow, and it is to have Sorrow and Turnbull starting. I don't actually. This is a really, really hard one to call. I think from a formation, in terms of the scenario, the 4-2-3-1 just isn't working. I don't know if a personnel change would work. It feels a wee bit like a Ronnie Dyler thing to do. Ruth, I'm not entirely sure about your personnel, but I guess you could do it for 20 minutes and see what happens. I'm going to give Ruth the point in this. Ruth, you've drawn level.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Despite the Turnbull oversight, I'm grateful.
Let this be a lesson to you, Stuart. I have to say that was close, because I think your changes ordinarily could win the game for us. Scenario number 3: Hearts score an injury time winner in extra time to take it to penalties. Right? I need you to tell me which 5 players you're putting up for penalties. The following are no longer at your disposal. So the following players cannot take a penalty: Odsonne Edouard, Scott Brown, Diego Laxalt, and Moy Elianusi. So I want to know your 5 penalty takers and in what order. And Stuart, I'm coming to you first.
Okay. Give me one small moment, Paul. Maybe you could, I don't know, read out the charities or something. I don't know. I need to think.
Yeah.
One moment.
Yeah, well, the reason we're doing this is so Celtic State of Mind have organised, Paul John Dix has organised this fantastic event where many of the Celtic fan podcasts are coming together and broadcasting for an hour each to raise money for 4 fantastic charities. It's very, very easy to donate money. Just look at the web address underneath, whether it's you're watching on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. There's a link below. There's a charity auction as well. Lots of cool stuff up there for auction. So I think we've raised far north of £12,000 already, which is £12,514 is the total raise, which is absolutely fantastic. So keep them coming. Stuart, I'd like to know your penalty takers, please.
Okay, so there's no Eddie, there's no Brown, there's no Laxalt, and no Moy. So I've dipped into my bench a little bit, Paul, presuming that some of these players have come on for some of those players that I've lost.
Well, remember that there's only 5 subs, Stuart.
This is fine. I have 1, 2. Yep, that's worked out famously. I've only taken 3 people from the bench, so that's all gone well. So number 1, excellent set piece taker, and as you say, has the venom for Hearts, Lee Griffiths. I think he's going to be a nice, safe pair of hands to get us off the starts. Second penalty taker, again, excellent set piece man. Presume he can take a great penalty if he can take corners and free kicks the way he does. David Turnbull. I think he'd probably Panenka him. I think he's got that in his locker if he needs to be. Third one, controversial. This is a mentality one. I think that when you have a penalty shout, especially high pressure, you need leaders, and I think that recently you're starting to see Chris Ayer really becoming a leader in that team, really taking responsibility, and I think that Chris Ayer would take responsibility and take a penalty, so I'm going to put him in there as number 3. I then think that Albion Ayeti will be on by this stage, possibly playing in a 2 up top with Griffiths.
Okay.
So I'm going to have him, and then the ultimate responsibility goes to the captain, Callum McGregor. I think that McGregor has shown that he is absolutely willing to put himself in the firing line. You saw it against Lille when he had his sort of terrible mistake for the first goal and then immediately wanted the ball for the penalty. I think that he would absolutely put himself forward to clinch history. So Callum McGregor, number 5.
Griffiths, Turnbull, Ayer, Ayeti, and McGregor. Very good. Ruth, now, the only stipulation here is that you can't start with the same 2. So if you have Griffiths and Turnbull to start, you can't. Well, you basically can't. So
okay,
but I'm okay with the rest.
I didn't realise the second one came into it. Like, I'm just going to do a wee swap. That's fine. No problem. So mine's kind of inverted, actually, to Stuart. So I've got McGregor starting first. I think you want to start strong. As I said, captain role. I think that is how you get off to a great start in the penalty shootout. I've then gone for, I did actually have Turnbull second as well, but I have swapped that. I also think that Ayeti will be on at this point, and I've put Ayeti in number 2. I think it's good to get him. He might be a little bit nervous. Don't want him waiting too long when there's a lot of pressure on the penalty. I think it's a good time for him to endear himself to the support. So I've gone for Ayeti, number 2. Number 3, DT14. I think that he showed a lot of guts when he was wanting to take that penalty against Lille. I think he's going to back himself. That third penalty is coming. It's crucial. And I think that he's ready for the task. And then I think the last 2 penalties, there could be high pressure ones. I've gone for Christie, who I know he did miss that penalty against Rangers, but I think for the most part, he is quite cool, calm and collected. And also I was listening to the other dugout this morning, and Tom Rodgick's sky high penalty is fresh in my memory. So I don't want to put Rodgick through that again. And then to win the cup against Hearts, I've gone for Lee Griffiths, penalty number 5. A dream come true for him. Could be a turning point for him in terms of the season as well. So that's my 1 to 5.
So McGregor, Ajeti, Turnbull, Christie and Griffiths.
Yeah.
Okay. So Stuart, you've started with a left-footed penalty taker. Now, I have a thing about left-footed penalty takers.
I've actually got a couple of left-footed penalty takers in there, but yeah.
To start with one, actually, you've done the same, Ruth. So, guys, okay, the 2 big calls here, and I like them both, is Stuart, that you put Chris Ayer in to take a penalty. I like that. I think you showing your faith in Ayer as his manager would give him a massive confidence boost. And I agree. I think he's turning into a proper bit of a soldier on the pitch for Celtic.
He's a big horse of a man. He'd absolutely slew it in top bin.
Yep, batter it. Ruth, you've gone with Christie taking a penalty, and I really like that because he doesn't actually. He's missed a couple of penalties, but his penalties are normally really good, especially when he's playing for Scotland. Because, as we all know, he loves Scotland more than Celtic.
How many penalties did Chris Ayer missed, though, Paul?
Well, we don't know. And also, I'll be in a Yeti. You've both put a Yeti in, just assuming that he can hit a penalty because he's a striker. We don't know if he can hit a penalty or not, eh? So for me, it's basically like how you're starting and how you're ending. Well, you've both done Griff and McGregor. It's really the question of who's got the bigger bottle between Callum McGregor and Lee Griffiths. It's really hard to call. I think just given the importance of the occasion and the fact that he hates Hearts so much, I'm going to give the point to Ruth here because I think Christie's more likely to score than Ayer, and I think Lee Griffiths to score that winning penalty could be a really, really great moment. So
I would actually probably agree with that. To be fair, Lee Griffiths does have a history of rising to high pressure occasions like that. So fair dues.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, great. I think we're going to have time to do all 5 scenarios. So here's scenario number 4. Stephen Naismith has totally done Laxalt. He's crumpled on the ground, clutching his ankle. Naismith is doing that thing he does where he's leaning over him, laughing at him, laughing in his face. We've seen him do it many times. It's not nice. Which Celtic player are you instructing to deal with him, and in what way? Ruth.
Is this from the original lineup?
The original lineup.
Okay.
Just to remind viewers, it's Hazard, Ayer, Julienne, Duffy, Laxalt, Brown, McGregor, Rodgick, Christie, Moy, and Eddie. And remember, if you want, you can make us up and stick
just for this
on.
purpose.
Remember in the World Cup final, where I think it was the Netherlands and they subbed the goalie. It was Tim Krul came on and won them whatever match that was. It wasn't the final. So there you go.
It was like semi-final. Yeah, it was big. Yeah.
What is the score at this point? Did you tell us that?
Oh, I haven't. The score is 1-1, and we've just started the second half.
Okay, I was going to go for Duffy breaking Naismith's legs, but it seems that maybe at 1-1, getting a player sent off for that is a little bit risky, maybe. I think I'm still going to stick with Duffy because I think this is a job that he would be good for. And again, I think that maybe this is the sort of thing, if he puts in a really ballsy performance here and manages to really get inside Naismith's head, that's something that could endear him to the support. And I think that he needs that. So I'm just going to be telling him to get really close to Naismith, just maybe whispering a few things in his ear. I'm going to give him free rein in terms of what that's going to be. I don't mind. And then when Celtic do get the winner, which is going to come from Eddie, then that's the moment I'm telling them to slide in 2-footed as high as he wants.
Wow.
And,
okay.
That's it. I'm happy with that. I think it's, maybe toward the end of the game, I'm going to say in the last 5 minutes that he's willing to do that. And I think that it won't just be Celtic fans that be happy to see that. I think maybe all of Scottish football could rejoice.
Okay, no holds barred. Stuart, what's your reaction?
Well, my initial reaction was that I was also going to pick Duffy, and I was going to get him to header him until he exploded, like just from a corner. Like if you could try and do it in an attacking move, so it looks slightly more accidental, that would be good. But obviously, I can't take Duffy. So next, what I'm thinking here is, look, if Scott Brown's going to play, Scott Brown's not going to play 90 minutes. Scott Brown, when he started more recently, has had 60 minutes and off. So I think that if Brown is going to play, he's going to have 60 minutes and then we're going to have Sorrow in. You haven't said anything about Brown being booked at this point. So I'm going to let things play out for about 10 minutes. And then Scott Brown is going to fulfill the captain's role of absolutely filling in Naismith in the way that only Scott Brown knows how to, where he takes it so close to the line without getting sent off. You know, one of those great, horrible challenges, ideally to hurt him, and then absolutely make sure there's some afters as well, probably with some smirking, probably with some laughing, sort of that sort of spirit, you know, that like the Pataudry when he was kind of, you know, doing the old sort of Conor McGregor sort of strut, bit of that. And then you can sort of safely take him off. He was coming off at 60 minutes anyway, so he's done his man. He's done the captain's role. He's taken his booking. No one has to get sent off. Stephen Naismith's obviously injured, can't continue. And then you get him off to safety and Sorrow comes in. That's what I'll do.
Okay.
Plus, I think Scott Brown would really enjoy it.
Two great answers. I don't know why does Naismith do that? I find it very weird that he does that so often in his career. Just laugh at standing over a player who's just injured, laughing at him. Ruth, you've gone with Duffy. Yeah, this is the perfect opportunity for Duffy to really endear himself to the fans. You know, he struggled since he came in. You know, a couple of goals at the start of his career, but a lot of mistakes. And he was talking recently in the press about how he's found the move to Celtic hard, especially during a pandemic, not being able to see his kids. So this could be a great moment for him to, you know, get the fans back on side. Love it. Big handsome stud that he is. And Stuart, you've basically described something we all love to see, is when Scott Brown is using his cunning and his footballing brain to actually just manipulate a game and make it work for himself. And again, Brown, another player that's had a tricky season. He's not the player he was, but we all still love him. I love when Brown behaves like that. You know, within the law, of course. I think Stuart, I think I'm giving you the points here. I think Brown deserves a moment like that, especially in a cup final, because who knows, as the season goes on, maybe he's going to feature a bit less now that we know how good Ismaila Soro is in that position. So, yeah, Brown gets his own back for the team on Naismith. Laxalt is okay to play on, by the way, just in case you were worried about him. No one asked about Laxalt.
I think whoever gets the point, it's just important to remember that Stephen Naismith gets hurt. That's all that matters.
Yeah, actually, no, I'm happy. As long as that's the outcome, I can take it.
Fair.
You two are like bloodthirsty, eh? I just want them to get like just a wee knock. You two are talking about like
explosions.
Yeah, I want him to explode like a cartoon character.
Okay. Right. Well, Stuart, you get the point there. Well done. It's down to the wire, folks. It's down to the wire. So there's one last scenario. Now, there's a bit more to this, and I think I really need you to talk me, show you're working on this, really kind of convince me that you know what you're doing here. So, using your team from scenario one. So, Stuart, that's your team. It's basically the team except with MJ in instead of Moy. And Ruth, you've got Griffiths in instead of Moy. Celtic are winning 2-1, but it's been a crap game. We're not playing well. There's half an hour left. No substitutions have been made. However, Scott Brown and Andy Halliday have both been sent off. So you're down to 10 men. All of your defenders.
Can you talk about how Scott Brown hurt Andy Halliday, please?
He exploded.
He exploded in like a cartoon character. Tremendous.
All your defenders are in yellow cards. So Ayer, Julian, Duffy and Laxalt are all in yellows. It's a slightly imbalanced team, perhaps, but again, this is a cup final. You know, rules are kind of out the window. Hearts, let's just say Hearts have got maybe two of their defenders on yellow cards. Naismith's also on a yellow card.
Oof, there's a lot of
Well,
yellows
it's
flying about.
Celtic, isn't it? Oh, I've lost. How do you win the trophy? How do you see out the next 30 minutes to win the trophy? I'd say we've got about 8 to 10 minutes left in this podcast. And I need you to talk me through your thinking. And Stuart, you're up first.
Okay. So, no Scott Brown. Defenders are all on yellows. I've got Mikey Johnson, who's probably realistically not going to make it through the whole game because he's made of glass. So, first move, I'm going to take off Tom Rogic and I'm going to bring on Ishmael Assoro. So,
that's brutal.
sorry, pal. So you've got 4 still with Ayer, Julian, Duffy, Laxalt, Soro, McGregor in the middle. Christie stays. I'm going to take off MJ for Turnbull. And then we're going to do the old kind of Neil Lennon switcheroo, where I'm going to play Christie on the left and Turnbull on the right, sort of like a 4-4-1. I appreciate that Hearts are going to have to make the same sort of change because they've also lost Andy Halliday, so it's 10v10. And I think that 4-4-1 is the best move for now. Moving forwards, I would probably bring on Frimpong for Duffy. So my back 4, I wouldn't make all these changes at once. I don't want to lose the head. Those would be my initial changes. I'd then take off Duffy for Frimpong. So my back 4 would be Frimpong, Ayer, Julian, Laxalt, flat 4, so that you still have energy, bags and bags and bags of energy to go at Hearts when they're tired. Frimpong and Laxalt who can get up and down, and that will hopefully sort of help for width and an attacking threat while we play a sort of 2 banks of 4. That seems quite negative, but with very attack-minded wing-backs, I feel comfortable with that. Then as the game, again, goes to the sort of latter stages, you have the option of taking off Eddie for perhaps a Griffiths or a Klimala, someone that can stretch the game. We've seen that with Klimala, that if you give him the last sort of 10, 15 minutes, he can run defences ragged. So I feel like that's kind of it. Essentially a 4-4-1, Soro, McGregor, Turnbull, Christie, and then my next move would be Frimpong for Duffy.
Okay.
Mic drop out. That's me.
I think that's pretty good. Am I able to take Soro on, just not for Rogic?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So you have the floor, Ruth.
Right. So in terms of defence, I know you've said about yellow cards, which is a threat, but I'm just going to try and tell them to keep the heat and stick with it. And instead, I'm going to take on Taylor, who I think is a better fullback than Laxalt, and kind of have them playing as a solid 4, trying to get Taylor on to kind of shore up that defence and doing a little bit less running. And then I am going to take Soro on, but I guess I can't do it for Rogic, so I'm going to have to do this in a more complicated way. So I'm going to take Griffiths off for Soro. But Soro is going to be sitting alongside, just right in front of the defence, and I'm going to get him to do some of that tackling that I don't want my defenders to do that are on a yellow card. So Soro was there to kind of do those kind of riskier challenges when he comes on. And then I'm going to take off Rogic for Klimala. And for what I've previously said about Klimala, he's there to do that running. He's there to put some pressure on. He's there to give Eddie a little bit more service, perhaps. And I want the defence and I want the team just to sit back a little bit and try and catch on the counter. I don't want to do anything silly, just kind of like Celtic did at Ibrox. We're going to sit back. We're going to try and catch them on counter attacks. So it's not too much of a formation change, really. We've got McGregor maybe moving a little bit forward and Soro kind of slotting in to where he was. McGregor's kind of going to move into that central role that Rogic had before. And Klimala is going to be sitting kind of in between that 2 of Christie and McGregor and Eddie. So that's what I'm going for.
Okay. One more spanner to add to the works.
What?
To this scenario?
Injury time.
Paul, I invented this game and this has never happened. I'm sorry.
No, this is an added tier.
That's why you should have hosted it, Stuart.
This is true.
92 minutes. Christopher Ayer, red card. What are you going to do? Ruth, you're going first this time.
But who was it that got the red card, sorry?
Ayer.
You're
right back.
So Paul, this is wild. And I've already made the subs that I've just made.
Yep.
Oh my God.
This is what managers have to do, Ruth. This is it.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
How are you going to win the game? You're 2-1 up, remember?
I'm 2-1 up, right.
Down to 9 men. Fine. Jesus.
I know, this is unprecedented. Okay. Do you know what? I'm taking a player Gal's playbook here. I think I'm going to have to move Brown into defence because I could look at Frimpong, but
Brown's been sent off.
Oh fuck yeah, Brown's gone. Paul, this is mayhem. Okay.
This is what you got to do to win trophies, Ruth.
This is my managerial debut in a Scottish Cup final, and I'm down to 9 men. This is not what the Warnock-Mancini duo was hoping for.
Oh, by the way, the ref is Andrew Dallas as well. I should have said that.
Okay, that's really great. Okay, right.
You've just got a couple of minutes to see out. Are you going to make any changes to your formation? Or are you going to ask anyone to play?
I think, right, do you know what? Sorrow's going to have to move back. Sorrow is going to have to play as a fully defensive player in a back four alongside Julian, Duffy and Taylor. Now, again, not ideal. He is not a tall man.
He's not. Well, you can stick him in it right back and see what happens. All right, Stuart, what are you doing?
What's the worst that could happen?
I am going to, just because he's more defensively minded, I'm going to take off. We're just going to see this out. I'm going to take off Christie. I'm going to presume that so Eddie's come off for Klamala, so I've got someone that's doing all the legwork up there. I take off Christie for Taylor, and we're just going to sit in for the last. I presume there'll only be another 1 minute of injury time here, so it'll be next to nothing. So we'll then have Taylor, Laxalt, Julien, and Frimpong will drop back in for 4. We've got Sorrow and McGregor, plenty of protection there in the front, and then we're just going to be playing long balls, and Klamala can be sprinting and stretching the game. But I mean, my notes are a mess now, Paul. So I hadn't expected that.
This is like the scribblings of a mad woman at this stage.
Yeah. Okay, I've heard enough. You cope well with that, mostly, Perry's.
I don't know.
No, Ruth, I enjoyed your creativity in the first kind of part of that scenario, just how you were going to see out the game. It felt like a very sensible, sort of defensive-minded approach to it. Taylor coming in for Laxalt, if you just want someone to just sit back and just kind of try and protect the goal. However, Sorrow playing it right back, I don't know how that's going to go. I felt a wee bit like, it did actually feel quite kind of Neil Lennon-esque, actually, just sticking a midfielder in at fullback. So perhaps that is it.
To Stuart, be fair, the bench is not conducive to changing that up. So
where's Near Beaton when you need him?
Yeah, exactly. I had Beaton taking a penalty as well before I realised he wasn't even on the bench.
He's probably injured again. Stuart, I have to say, I thought your approach to the first part of that scenario was excellent. A 4-4-1 with sort of your wider midfielders sort of tucking in. I thought there was a lot of work rate there, but still with the opportunity to break. I think moving Frimpong back to right back once I had been sent off was the right thing to do as well. So, Ruth, I'm so sorry, but Stuart had a clear match plan to see out this game. He's won the Scottish Cup and he's also won the dugout. Stuart, well done.
Congratulations, Stuart.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Do you know who the real winner is, Paul? The real winner is charity. That's who the real winner is today. It's inconsequential who's won this little game.
That is the reason we're here. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Thanks very much to Paul John Dykes for asking us to take part. Remember to donate what you can to the various charities that this is supporting. There'll be podcasts for the rest of the day. Very, very exciting. If you'd like to hear more from us, you can find us on social media at Cynic. Was it at 90 Minutes Cynic? I can't remember.
At 90 Minutes Cynic, I think. 90 Minutes Cynic.
Or the website, thecynic.co. We make just hundreds of podcasts every single week. Everything you'd want from a Celtic podcast. We were delighted to be part of this. They've been Ruth Boyle and Stuart Dugan. Great to be with you guys.
Thank you very
for
much.
having me.